Far Eastern forces were on standby, and an emergency alert order was issued to all units of the South Korean Army along the 38th parallel.
1951, Captain Richard Hale and his men were given orders no soldier wanted.
Some hours before the start of the war, the families of the U.S. officers were secretly sent to Japan by a Norwegian ship.
Advancing forces. The mission was simple on paper, but Hale knew the truth. Simple missions in Korea had a way of becoming nightmares. Snow whipped across the valley as the group gathered.
But the people of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea were spending June 24th Saturday as an ordinary day.
Hale's men scanned the horizon nervously, rifles at the ready. Private Lewis muttered, "Feels like we're walking targets." Hale adjusted his helmet, eyes locked on the dark ridge beyond. And with those words they stepped into the night, leading the helpless into the jaws of war. Because sometimes survival isn't about fighting, it's about carrying lives that cannot fight for themselves. The road of ice, the path was treacherous, a frozen trail winding through the valley. Boots crunched in snow, carts creaked under weight, muffled sobs carried in the wind. Hale walked point, scanning every shadow. His gut screamed danger. The civilians stumbled often. A boy collapsed, too weak to stand. Hale lifted him onto his shoulders without a word, trudging forward. Sergeant Cole whispered, "We're not going to make it at this pace." Hale's reply was cold. "Then we'll die trying." But even as he spoke, he knew time was against them. The enemy moved fast, and the night was slipping away. Because in war the clock is deadlier than the bullet. The first shots halfway through the valley, the silence shattered. A crack of gunfire split the night. A woman screamed, "Down!" Hale roared. Bullets whipped through the snow, striking carts, splintering wood. Civilians dropped flat, clutching children. Hale's men fired back blindly into the dark ridge. Cole shouted, "Snipers!" Hale crawled to cover, scanning. The shots weren't aimed to kill, they were aimed to herd. "They're pushing us off the trail," Hale realized. Into the open. And that meant only one thing, ambush. Because sometimes the deadliest trap isn't the one you see, it's the one you walk into by choice. The decision. They had two options: retreat to the village and abandon the civilians, or push forward into the ridge and risk annihilation. The men looked to Hale. His stomach churned. Both choices meant death. He clenched his jaw. Forward. Always forward. The group moved again, slower now, fear thick as the snowstorm. A child asked softly, "Will we live?" Hale forced a smile he didn't feel. Yes, but inside he wondered if he had just lied to them all. And every step forward raised the question, was Hale saving them or leading them to slaughter? The betrayal in the snow as they reached a bend in the trail. Hale noticed something off. One of the civilians, a young man, kept drifting toward the edge of the group, glancing back more than forward. Hale's instincts screamed. He grabbed the man, yanking him close. "What are you looking at?" The man stammered in broken English. "Nothing." Just afraid. But Hale saw it then, the faint glimmer of metal under his coat. A radio transmitter. Hale's blood froze. He ripped it away, holding it up for the men to see. Cole spat. "He's calling them right to us." The civilians gasped, some backing away. Panic rippled through the group. Hale's rifle pressed into the man's chest. His finger hovered on the trigger. Because the worst enemy isn't always the one in uniform. It's the one standing among the people you swore to protect. The mercy or the bullet Hale's men urged him. Kill him. "Do it now," the civilians cried out, begging. The young man pleaded, tears streaming. Hale's heart pounded. If he spared him, more could die. If he pulled the trigger, he'd become executioner of the very people he was meant to save. He hesitated, rifle shaking. Cole whispered, "Sir." "Decide." The snow fell harder, covering them like a shroud. And in that moment, Hale realized something terrifying. Whatever choice he made, the war had already won. Because some decisions don't save lives. They only decide how they're lost. Hale's finger tightened on the trigger. The young man's eyes widened, lips trembling as he whispered, "Please." Then from the ridge, flares erupted, blinding light flooding the valley. And as the sky burned red, enemy voices echoed through the snow, closing in from all sides. The evacuation had just become a siege. The red sky, the flares burned the night into day, painting the snow a sickly crimson. Captain Richard Hale squinted, rifle pressed to his shoulder. Civilians cowered in the open, their shadows stretched long and trembling. From the ridge, enemy shouts echoed. Boots stomped. Rifles cracked. Cover the civilians. Hale roared. His men spread out, firing into the glare. Bullets screamed overhead. A child cried out, clinging to her mother's coat. Private Lewis yelled, "They've got us boxed in." Hale's gut twisted. They weren't just boxed in. They were bait on a killing ground. Because when the sky turns red in war, it's not for beauty. It's for blood. Breaking the line, the enemy poured down the slope, shadows rushing like a black tide. Hale's men unleashed lead, muzzle flashes bursting like fireflies. The air filled with smoke, snow, and screams. One soldier fell, clutching his chest. Another went silent with a bullet through his helmet. Sergeant Cole grabbed Hale's arm. "Sir, we can't hold them here." Hale scanned the valley. The trail ahead narrowed into a gorge, a kill box if the enemy reached it first. "Then we move now," Hale said. But even as he gave the order, he felt the weight of it. Moving the civilians under fire would expose them all. Because in war, safety isn't real. It's only the illusion you run toward before it vanishes. The human shield. They herded the civilians forward, bullets whizzing past. A boy stumbled, Hale scooping him up with one arm while firing with the other. Suddenly a burst of enemy fire cut across the snow, and Hale saw it. One of the attackers was aiming low, not at the soldiers. At the civilians, rage tore through Hale. "They're targeting them. Drive them back." His men fired furiously, pushing the attackers into cover. But the truth sank like ice. The civilians weren't just baggage, they were the enemy's target. Because sometimes the prize of war isn't land or weapons. It's lives too fragile to fight back. The spy's fate in the chaos. The young man with the radio tried to slip away. Cole caught him, slamming him into the snow. "Still think he's innocent?" Cole spat. Hale stormed over, fury burning in his chest. The boy's eyes were wild, lips trembling. "Please, I only wanted to live." The radio crackled faintly in his coat pocket. "Enemy coordinates," whispered in static. Hale raised his rifle, but before he could decide, another shot rang out. The boy crumpled, blood staining the snow. Cole lowered his smoking pistol. Decision made. The civilians screamed, horrified. Hale's jaw clenched. Cole had saved lives or damned them all. Because in war, justice and survival rarely share the same path. The desperate push move. Hale shouted. They charged down the narrow gorge, civilians stumbling behind, carts overturned in the rush. The walls rose high on both sides, a perfect place for an ambush. Hale knew it. The men knew it. But there was no other way. Gunfire rained down from the cliffs, sparks dancing off the rock. Hale's men returned fire, their shouts echoing in the canyon. Lewis screamed, clutching his leg. Hale dragged him behind cover, blood smearing into the snow. "Keep moving." Hale roared, throat raw. "Don't stop!" Because in an evacuation, stopping is the same as dying. The river crossing at last, they reached the river. The water was black, chunks of ice drifting fast. The only way across was a half-frozen bridge of wood and rope. The civilians gasped, some shaking their heads. Mothers clutched children, terrified of the rushing current below. Cole muttered, "One hit from artillery and this bridge is gone." Hale gritted his teeth. "Then we cross before they have the chance." He sent his men first, forming a shield on the far side. The civilians followed one by one, the bridge groaning under weight. Snowflakes swirled in the wind. Every step felt like it could be the last, because sometimes survival is nothing more than walking on something that should already be broken. Halfway across, a deafening blast split the night. The far bank erupted in flame, dirt raining down. The enemy had found them. Civilians screamed, clutching the ropes, the bridge swaying wildly over the rushing river. Hale's men fired desperately. Smoke and chaos blinding their aim. Hale locked eyes with Cole. Both men knew the truth. The next decision would decide not just who lived, but whether any of them lived at all. The blast shook the earth. Civilians screamed as fire rolled across the far bank. The rope bridge swayed violently, planks snapping under boots. Hale gripped the rope, forcing himself steady. "Keep moving," he bellowed. Bullets sparked against the wood. The enemy was targeting the bridge now, trying to drop them all into the black current below. Private Lewis limped forward, teeth clenched in pain, dragging a crying child with him. The bridge groaned, ropes fraying under strain. Because sometimes the battlefield isn't ground or sky. It's the thin line holding you above certain death. The choice at midpoint halfway across, chaos erupted. A plank shattered under a woman's foot. She dangled, screaming, clutching her baby tight. "Help her!" Miller cried, reaching back. But on the far side, Sergeant Cole shouted, "We can't stop. They'll bring the bridge down!" Hale's gut twisted. If he ordered the line to stop, they'd all die. If he ordered them forward, the woman and her child would fall. Time slowed. The bridge swayed. Enemy fire hammered around them. Hale made his choice. He dropped his rifle and lunged, hauling the woman back with brute strength, baby pressed to her chest. The line staggered forward again. Because in war, mercy always comes with a price, and someone else pays it. The last man, across the last civilians, reached the far bank. Cole pulled them into cover. But Hale was still on the bridge, gunfire shredding the ropes. "Captain!" Miller shouted. Hale sprinted, the bridge buckling beneath him. An explosion rocked the gorge, heat searing his back. The rope snapped. The bridge tilted, planks splitting apart. Hale leapt, boots hitting frozen dirt just as the bridge tore free and plunged into the river below. He rolled hard, lungs burning but alive, barely. Because survival isn't about strength, it's about outrunning collapse by a single heartbeat. The betrayers echo. They regrouped in the tree line. Civilians huddling together, children sobbing. Hale's men counted their ammo, almost gone. Cole spat into the snow. "We won't hold them off another attack." Before Hale could answer, a faint crackle came from the dead boy's stolen radio. Enemy voices. Coordinates. Their exact position. Miller paled. "He called them before we caught him. They're coming." Hale clenched his fists. The spy was dead, but his betrayal still lived. Because treachery doesn't end with the traitor, it echoes long after. The last stand, they had two choices: scatter into the woods and risk civilians freezing, or form a ring and hold until help arrived, if it ever came. Hale looked at the civilians, at the children clutching their mothers. He knew the answer. "We hold here," he said. His men dug in, rifles ready, frost clinging to their helmets. Civilians crouched low, silent. Their lives balanced on the last few bullets left. The forest fell quiet. Too quiet. Then came the sound, the crunch of boots. The enemy was closing in. Because the hardest battles aren't fought for victory, they're fought for time. The siege, the first wave, hit them like a storm. Gunfire lit the trees, snow erupting into bloody mist. Hale's men fired back, disciplined, precise, but every shot emptied what little they had left. Lewis screamed as a bullet tore through his arm, but still fired one-handed, refusing to quit. Miller fell, blood pooling fast, whispering, "Tell my mother," before going still. Hale's heart ached, but he kept shouting, kept fighting. Civilians prayed in the shadows, some covering children's eyes, others pressing hands over ears. Cole roared, mowing down another attacker. "We can't hold much longer." And he was right, their circle was shrinking. Because courage doesn't make you invincible, it just lets you stand long enough to break. The sound of salvation, just as Hale prepared for the end. A distant rumble shook the night. Engines, artillery. Headlights cut through the snow. An American column burst through the trees, rifles blazing, scattering the attackers in a storm of fire. Relief crashed over the survivors. Civilians wept openly. Soldiers collapsed in the snow, exhausted, broken but alive. Hale dropped to his knees, chest heaving. He looked at Cole, whose face was streaked with blood and grime. Neither man spoke, but both knew how close it had been. Because sometimes salvation doesn't arrive early. It arrives one heartbeat after the world should have ended. Epilogue: by dawn, the civilians were loaded onto trucks, carried toward safety. Hale's surviving men sat silent, eyes hollow. Too many were gone. Cole approached, voice low. "We saved them. That's what matters." Hale stared at the rising sun, hands trembling. At what cost? He knew the answer. Everything war ever demanded. And as the convoy rolled away, the snow-covered gorge lay silent again, holding the echoes of betrayal, sacrifice, and survival. This was the story of the Last Evacuation, a mission where sacrifice was the only path to survival. If this story moved you, don't let it vanish into silence. Hit subscribe to join us for more forgotten stories of the Korean War. Leave a like if you believe their courage deserves to be remembered. And share your thoughts in the comments, because every voice keeps history alive.